They're stressed, angry, lonely, tired, and they're yearning for a hell of a lot more.
Welcome back to Podcast on Wheels with your host, Brian Smith. And today we have virtually Mr. George Hayworth. He is the founder and CEO of Elite Sentinel Coaching. George, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, man, appreciate it. Sorry I couldn't make the trip down today. Things got crazy, so I really appreciate you being flexible and letting us do this virtually instead. We'll make up for that in the future, brother. But excited to be here, and let's get to it.
Awesome. Well, I do want to tell our fans and people that watch the show that the reason he didn't make the trip is because he's going to pick up his kid from school, and that's more important to this man. So that's how I want this show to start. George, you take it from there. Tell us about what you're doing and how life's going for you.
Yeah, so as you aptly alluded to, first and foremost, I'm a husband and father in that order, and those are the most important roles I will fill. And I think that's for all men. That's where their focus should be. But based off that, I'm also a combat veteran, served in the U.S. Army on active duty for about 4.5 years, did a combat tour to Afghanistan, had a break in service. I'm in the National Guard now, so still kind of a part-time warrior there. But like you said before, Elite Sentinel Coaching is my primary focus here. And what we do there is we forge masculine leaders so they can build their legacies. And that's really comprehensively. It's everything from your profession, for yourself individually, it's for your family. And really the belief there is that if you invest in men and train them up effectively, we can start making cultural influences, positive changes in our society. You know, I think we look back at the last 20 to 30 years, things have really gotten off kilter. And I think a lot of that is from a lack of men understanding what they needed to be, having the tools to actually lead effectively with strength and love. And then now you have negative forces too of like toxic masculinity and things like that. So we exist to kind of cut through the noise, give men the tools, and set them on the right path so that they can move on and move out and amplify those principles in their own lives moving forward. So at a high level, that's what I do. And then I've also got like a million other things going on. We run the Present Fathers podcast. I get to work with Nick Lavery as part of Precision Components, doing speaking gigs and all that kind of stuff. So all over the map. But the core mission today is investing in men, training them so that long term, quite frankly, I can put myself out of a job. That'd be great if we just raised men right from the get-go. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, no, brother, I appreciate it because, even though you have different things on your plate, they're all part of the same meal. Everything that you're doing is in alignment with your calling and your purpose and things that you exude, brother. And that's the cool thing as I've gotten to know you, George. You're not opening a jacket and saying, hey, you want some watches or do you want some of this or some of this? You're like, hey,
yeah.
This is who I am. This is what I represent. This is how it goes with this. And there's all aspects. So kind of, let me take advantage of this time. So if I wanted to come and work with you and I said, hey, my wife don't listen to me. I make a ton of money. If she would just do her job and keep everything with the kids going, then I could make more money and then I could provide more because maybe that's who I was a couple years ago. But, like if I come to you and I'm like, yeah, if she'll get her in order, then I'll be okay. So what, help me out.
Yeah. So there's a very common thing, right? And it's either money, it's this, like there's multiple factors it could be. So your story is relatively common, but it's kind of that root cause of it's still someone else's fault, right? If she improves, then I will. If this changes, then I will. And really that's a very fancy way of hiding our victim mentality. And I was absolutely this guy, right? I was that guy for years, Brian, of, well, it's my wife not dealing with her childhood trauma and she should be able to handle this and she should be a better mom and all, it's all this condemnation and her, not a whole lot of looking at myself in the mirror. So that's really where we focus with the men coming through our program is whatever that version of that story looks like, we kind of dismantle that in a loving way. We're trying to help you become the man you need to be. So a little bit of a poke in the chest, but also a lot of, support around the edges there. But really it's getting very honest about, hey, look, man, here's the secret that no one's telling you is maybe your wife is wrong. Maybe these things are all wrong. Maybe those do need to change. The fastest way to actually make that happen is you grow first, you improve first, and then it sets conditions for those other things to follow suit, especially in the context of marriage. This is the thing that the world loves to deny, but Men initiate and women respond. And that doesn't mean that women are weaker or worse. It's the dynamic that is how we are designed. And if you don't embrace that, no wonder your marriage isn't going very well. No wonder you're never having sex with your wife. No wonder she doesn't respect you, because you're not actually initiating and leading and doing the things that you were designed for. So of course she's not going to respond positively. So that's kind of the high level view of that core issue. And really, ownership is one of the most important things men have kind of strayed from. And like I said, I was that guy. George had to do a lot of growth. It took me a decade really to get from that victim mentality, blaming other people, to being the man that you're seeing today on this podcast. And so that's why we start there. It's because once you get that out of the way, now you can really double down on the things that just accelerate your own growth. And then also for your business, for your family, for your friend groups, whatever you're, involved with, that all follow suit very quickly.
Yes, sir. And George, we have a lot of mutual friends, as we've discussed, and there's some guys that you work with that are business owners or employee, just a different variety of guys. So, you know, I think about the people that I spent time with in the past, how that influenced me, getting around men like you and doing that. So how much is that a part of the adjustment, or for a guy to say, hey, I know I can be better. I now understand that, you know, um, I just Jocko keeps popping in my head, brother, where he's on there saying, okay, this is an excuse, this is a reason, and my response is good to both because
Mm-hmm.
everything, if I'm still in the fight, right? So it's like all these things kept start coming at me. And as a guy, sometimes I hear that and maybe I'm not kind with the truth, or I'm not being an exhorter for that spouse, or I'm not doing those things. So how do you, you know, eh, here's the cool thing about it. Guys that do what you do can tell exactly what you do, and until the guy understands it, it's a mute point. But like, how do you bring guys in and talk to them? Because that takes a special gift, George. Because a guy like me is going to tell you to go kick rocks, and I probably wouldn't have said it that way when I first met you a couple years ago.
Right.
I'd have told you I'm a man. I got this. It's just So how do you do
Right.
that?
Well, so first up, if that's your attitude, actually, I'm probably going to tell you I'm not going to work with you.
There we go.
So I don't care how broken a man is or whatever his situation is, as long as he's showing a willingness to be like, you know what, I do need help. Then, brother, game on. Let's get to it. And that is a hard truth a lot of people need to hear, is that unless a man is in a position where he's going to just a little bit let his guard down just a little to be like, I do need the help, nothing you can do is going to change it, and you've got to just let him learn the hard way. And then one day he'll probably come back and you can kind of make progress there. And so that's something I say very often, is like, to that type of individual, I tell him the truth and then I don't help him. And that's actually the most loving thing I can do for him in that moment, because he needs to have a harder lesson to make him realize that you can't do it alone. And so this dovetails into the next piece here, where most men today, especially in America, let's say ages 25 to 55, that kind of demographic, as of this recording, I think they're salty. They're stressed, angry, lonely, tired, and they're yearning for a hell of a lot more. And that's from kind of those cultural influences. It's from feeling like, man, there's got to be more to life than just going to work for 30 years and retiring, right? There's this desire within us as men that we want to gain ground and improve and grow and become better men. That's not selfishness or arrogance. That's what we're actually designed for. And modernity has convinced men that it's like, no, it's go play the corporate game, make tons of money, and then it's all going to be good, right? You could actually be very broke and very fulfilled with your life if you have some of these other truths really locked in. Right now, should we make more money? Of course, we should maximize so we can bless others. That's a whole separate conversation. But that salty acronym, I think, is where most men need to kind of have that reflection of, does that apply to me? And if so, here's likely why you feel that way. Number one is you're probably trying to handle it all on your own. Like you said, Brian, oh, I'm a man. I got this. Cool, bro. How's it going for you? How you
Right.
feeling? Right? You stressed right now?
Right.
Yeah, that's because life's hard. And you're also designed for this deep and close connection with other good masculine men. And this is kind of why our entire program is not this individual experience. It's very, very much intentionally designed to force you to work with other men because what you'll really learn through the process is that all the knowledge and all the skills and all that stuff, it's great. All the, all the wisdom and tactics and all the kinds of things, really helpful. But the most helpful thing for all of it is that brotherhood. And once you honestly get courageously transparent with other men, right? Because we don't like the word vulnerability, courageously transparent, and you're really having real deep connection with other men, a lot of your problems just start to melt away, or they don't seem nearly as stressful as they did yesterday. And that's where most men are stuck. And so once you kind of chip away at those edges there, the growth is pretty rapid, because now it's like you've got this wind in your sails that's pushing you forward. And so that's really where we start, is we make the man identify for himself that kind of honest look that I do need help. And then we surround them with the brotherhood experience, to where now as we're building you up, it's got this kind of like catalyst behind it. So it's exponentially growing. And really by the end of 12 weeks, you don't need me anymore. You're able to move on and move out. And now you've got this brotherhood, and you're going to go on and multiply it. Right. And that's true of all men. And it kind of just scales a little bit depending on your situation. Right. So if you got everything kind of clicking on all cylinders, and maybe just a few things like, I just need to get over the hump. Right. This program's for you. Or anything like this is going to help you get there. Or if you're the guy's like, man, I'm on the brink of divorce and I don't even know where to get started, we're going to get you back up to equilibrium where you should have been a long time ago. And then from there, you can kind of take it and amplify. But, that's, I think, the number one problem is men are isolated. The lone wolf gets eaten. He starves alone, right? And if you've been shouldering life all on your own, that's you. And it's not going to continue to work. So that's where I challenge men. Maybe I'm not your guy. That's fine. But at least locally, go having some real deep connection with other guys that you trust and respect, and forge those friendships. It is one of the most important things you can do for yourself.
Yeah. And as you get those guys in, here's something that jumped out to me. You're part of their journey. You're not proclaiming to be the answer to all their solutions. You're saying, hey, I've got this. And, another story that comes to my mind is, actually two things that when I made a post on a Facebook thing, and I have a decent following there, but it was something to the effect of, if I wanted my wife to do what I wanted her to do, I should be a better leader. And if she's not following my lead, and I'm the man and I'm supposed to be in charge, well, there's no such thing as a bad follower. Okay. All right. So I make that post just in a general, like, I'm maybe trying to get my wife's attention to say, hey, I need
See
you
where
to
this
do
is
what I'm
already
telling
going.
you. Okay. But, I got a message from a friend of mine that is a preacher, and he checked me, and okay. So, how do you, as you see that, what's that relationship with the spouse? Because earlier you kind of alluded to, there's guys that, well, if I had more sex, I'd be happier. Or if she made me dinner, or, my wife never, she used to make coffee for me. She used to do, how do we get started with that as far as that spouse? Because that, a lot of my former friends, I'll say it that way, and I think that alludes to that group of men that you're talking about. A lot of my former friends, I knew when I called them, they were going to complain about their wife. And then I would start
Yeah.
thinking, well, okay, so, you know, that's something that kind of happened to me, but guys that's come through give us some examples of how those things have changed. As brink of divorce, I'm not getting enough. How do you do that? Because that's something that every guy's like, more sex, more happy, more love, more attention, more gimme, gimme, gimme. So,
Yep. Yes. And so here's the first thing. It's not wrong to want sex with your wife, right? So
amen.
like if your wife accuses you of, well, you just want to have sex with me, don't deny it. Yes, absolutely, honey. I'm attracted to you. I love you. You're my wife. Okay. So that's number one. But yes, we miss the point here, right? We've been told a lot of false things that actually divide your relationship instead of actually bringing it back together. And we could spend all day kind of talking about what all those factors are, but at a very high level, it's just men not stepping up in the way that we're designed for. That's one. You've got things like feminism and negative cultural influences that have kind of conditioned men and women to think that, oh, well, if he leads anything, he's a tyrant, right? Or he's controlling me. And I can't submit to that because then I'd be submitting to the patriarchy and letting them win. And it's this like zero sum game. And in reality, it's not even a control issue. It's not a power dynamic. It's men have a purpose and women have a purpose. And when we get very honest about what those are and we amplify more being more masculine as men, it naturally makes our wife more feminine. And so this stuff like your sex life in your marriage is a good like thermometer of how good you guys are doing on that front, right? It's a byproduct of kind of these table stakes that we've been lied to about. So how do we actually make that happen? I'll try and summarize very quickly because we're not going to be here all day with this. But at a high level, most guys think they're leading because they like make money and they pay the bills. It's so much more. And this is the problem is men need to understand that your wife, her number one need is security, safety, the feeling of protection. Okay. And it's the feeling of it. This is the key thing. Feeling, right? She's feeling safe. It's not necessarily logical. Okay. And again, not a flaw in her, it's a feature. Okay. You guys will balance each other out. So how that looks is you're not getting sex likely because she doesn't feel covered, right? If she's nagging you all the time, if she's challenging what you're saying all the time, that's feedback for you to recognize that crap, maybe I'm not doing something right here, or I'm not asking enough hard questions here. So the way that looks like is she needs to feel safe physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, right? All the forms of safety. The most important one is likely emotional. And this is where men miss the point of like, they'll notice something's wrong with her and they'll either be like, ooh, I don't want to deal with that. And so they kind of just avoid it. Or they'll be like, what's the problem, honey? And she says the problem. And they go, all right, well, we'll just do this, this, and this, and we'll fix it. Time out. Missed the point. You need to peel the layers of her emotions back and connect and make her feel covered and seen in that moment. Then all this other stuff starts happening. Okay. So there's a lot to go into here, but at a high level, that's the dynamic. And that's where men kind of lead through the emotions. You initiate with the emotions, not just solve her problem. And she's going to start feeling protected and safe. So this is a long game play, right? Depending on your marriage, how long you've been one way, it's going to take time to kind of shift the dynamics. But it's where men step up and just kind of consistently take care of business, right? If you have a light bulb out in your house right now, why? Do you have to wait for your wife to tell you to go change the light bulb, or are you just going to go do it, right? So some of this stuff is like, you're just going to take care of business. Now she starts feeling like, oh, you know what? He's actually handling things. I am provided and covered for it. And you check in emotionally and you kind of cover on that front. And then another great example too is a lot of guys are doing this where they're so terrified of being seen as like authoritative or controlling that they're basically making no decisions. And it's not that they're even making no decisions. They actually take it one step further and they're basically saying, mommy, help me. What do we do? That's kind of the dynamic you're creating. So the example I use here that I noticed for myself was the shopping cart at the grocery store. We would be going to the store together. We'd park the car. We'd going in to get the week's groceries together. And I would turn to my wife and go, do we need a shopping cart? And then she would, be like, duh, bro. And it dawned on me one day, I've led troops in battle, but I'm going to ask my wife to decide for me whether or not I need a shopping cart at the damn grocery store when we're going to get loads of groceries, right? So it's not necessarily this one isolated incident, but how many times a week was I doing that kind of thing where I'm asking, mommy, what do I do? And sending that signal to her that I'm not actually capable of making decisions or I'm afraid to. This is a huge issue here, right? Because you start conditioning your wife to think subconsciously, and she's highly emotionally intelligent, more than you probably. She's picking this up subconsciously, going, well, if he can't even decide that, he's not going to protect me, or he's going to lose his temper about that. And so that is a huge critical piece. So I've talked a lot there. There's a lot to unpack, but it's these kind of subtle dynamics. Then all the other stuff comes, right? The more that you grow in these things, the more she's going to follow your lead, the more she's going to be actually attracted to you for sex, right? You become the guy she wants to have sex with, not has to have sex with.
There we go. And, you said something there that I'm sure my wife's going to replay over and over for me. It's a
You're
feature,
welcome.
not a flaw. It's a feature, not a flaw. And,
Yep.
but that's something that you said. And as you described that shopping cart incident, I can think of many times that I've looked at my wife and asked her something because in my way, I wanted to include her in this decision. I wanted her to
Right.
feel a part of it. It was not, I want mommy, what am I doing? But
Right. And I was the
as
same
you,
way, but
yeah,
that's the subtext of what you're communicating, right? And
exactly.
so we intend the right thing. We intend politeness and kindness, but we're missing the bigger picture of she's already made 700 decisions today. She doesn't want one more. You're a grown ass man. Just
Right,
do it, right? She doesn't
right,
care.
right,
She actually doesn't care. Now, if
right.
it's like, hey, we have to invest $50,000 in something, you better
Yes.
be having a conversation with your wife. If it's tiny little things like the trash needs to go out, you don't need to say, hey, honey, do you want me to take the trash out? No, bro, just do it. Right. So
Absolutely.
that's like a good starting point to catch yourself is how many times a week am I doing little things like that where I essentially ask her for permission to just do the right thing? And that's where the subtext of what you're saying is essentially subtly communicating to her that I won't act unless you tell me to. And so now she feels scared because she subconsciously knows, right? Her mind has already made 7 leaps. She's playing chess with this and you're playing checkers that, ooh, well, now
Amen.
I'm not safe. I'm not protected. I'm not provided
Yeah,
for.
yeah. And you're telling me things, and the reason that I can acknowledge it at this point is because, like I said, we have similar friends. We have things that we've been through at this point.
Uh-huh.
And as I've been reminded as you talk, sometimes as I'm talking to people, whether it's on the podcast or whether it's a coaching thing or whether I'm around them, I'm like, how do you not get this? And then I'll think back to if I took, and I'll tell you this part, and then you can diagnose me a little deeper here as we just get me some screen time. Um, when I was asking my wife, "Hey, do we need a shopping cart?" in that capacity, I also was keeping things from her that were happening in the business that she could tell I was struggling because this happened, but I don't want to tell her this bad thing over here. I'm just going to include her in these non essential type conversations to try to satisfy her. But if I told her that we just had a X amount of $1,000 swing today based off of this mistake that somebody else made that I entrusted with the decision, that's not going to make me look very good. So, but it's okay if I say, hey, do we need a shopping cart or do we need another round of beef or do we need to, like, so how would
Yeah.
you help me to be able to say, okay, well, how do you bring her with? How do you include her? How do you make her feel safe, but yet tell her the truth?
Right. Great question. And this is one that each man has to apply a lot of wisdom based off of his scenario, right? So the money example, I'll just speak anecdotally from my experience in my marriage as an example to teach the principle here. My wife gets really scared about any money, right? Like if we got to spend a penny, it's too much. You know what I mean? So there's kind of and that stems to childhood stuff and things like that, right? And so me just acknowledging that I'm not going to be dishonest with her about what we are or not spending or those kinds of things. But I check in with her more of knowing that if I just laid out all the details, it's just going to overburden her and over stress her out. And so it's more of the conversation of, hey, honey, um, I'm happy to share with you what's going on here, but we need to maybe not buy this month because of this, and this. And here's my plan to kind of fix it or move forward. Do you want to know more information? I think it might just stress you out, or do you trust me in this? Right. So it's more of a, hey, I'm bringing you to the same side of the table, and then you let me know how much or little you actually want to deal with here. And often she'll just be like, no, I trust you, but I don't like that, but I trust you to figure it out. Right. And
Right.
that's just one example. It's not, there's no dishonesty there, right? So it's just like with your children, you don't always give the full explanation of everything. It's kind of know your wife, right? Become a student of your wife and know her natural fears and things that, like, for
Again,
example, with my wife, the
yeah,
money thing is
right,
amped up to like 11, right? But other things, I can have full open conversation with her about every little detail. And she's like, okay, great. It does, because it doesn't bother her. So it's that's how I would advise in that regard. And I do want to go back one thing to kind of the, in the emotional sense too. This ties back in very heavily with kind of peeling the layers of those emotions, right? So if it's a trigger for your wife, this is where you want to understand why, instead of, well, you should just be able to handle that. And that used to be me. I treated my wife's emotions like they were something to be fixed, or it was like this thorn in my side, as opposed to, no, this is actually the highway to deep intimacy together. spiritually, physically, emotionally, right? That's how you actually connect for real, is understanding it's not a flaw, it's a feature. And she's signaling to me that something is off. And this is how I get to lead kind of and reconnect with her and team up together on the issues. And maybe it's not fair, right? Maybe it's not fair that I have to kind of play around my wife's fear about money. But okay, well, let's back up to the ownership piece. If I am wholly responsible for everything my family does or fails to do, fair doesn't matter. I chose to marry this woman. I'm responsible for her and everything my family accomplishes. So, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to use my influence and skills to help her with that. And when you start changing that perspective of she's not doing it to me, it's something I get to help her with, just watch your marriage transform. I mean, it is unbelievable how that has changed our marriage. I mean, we went from being on the brink of divorce numerous times, fighting all the time, to now like we laugh all the time, we're having sex all the time. I mean, it's just, I never thought we'd have what we have. And it's not like I'm some special dude. I just learned these basic truths and actually started applying them. And it all starts to fall suit, and it's compounding interest, right? You get it right a couple times, it starts to build and build and build, and then she feels better, and you're all just on the rocket ship together.
Yeah, and I've yet to see anybody go through and truly take ownership and truly give the wife that safety and security of including her, but also respecting her personality, I don't like to use the word tendencies or habits, because then I go into another whole spiel about, well, if you recognize it, adjust it. Okay. But it's like,
Right.
okay, you're still providing that same comfort, that safety. And that's what, I feel like for my wife and my situation, she wants to be included in those information. She wants to know about this situation, and she wants to understand that, because, you know, we've operated separately at the first part of our marriage. Like, she had her business, I had my business. We had different experiences. When we bring it back together now, whose name's on the door? Who's getting into, who's making this decision? We had a little bit of that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I remember, as you have, said, it's the communication. It's being able to respect that person. So, you know, how many people, because here's the thing, when I first got into the group to talk to guys, to get around people like you, George, and who are blessing so many people, I wanted to make more money. I knew that if I got around these guys and acted like I was doing everything that I took ownership in, and I could stand on stage and say the right thing, but then I wasn't being blessed in the way I thought I was supposed to be blessed. And I was missing so many blessings that were happening every day as my wife smiled at me more. Oh, she did kiss me today. She didn't run off. My kids were actually interested in what I had to say because I was in the moment with them.
Right.
So, there's been a lot of things that's happened for us to get here. But how many guys have you seen that they do your program and then all of a sudden, boom, they start this and they're helping this person, and the blessings that are just shotgunned out? So tell us a little bit about that, because I know from my personal perspective, when I first signed up, I wanted to make more money. And I thought, well, if I can figure out this faith and all this other stuff they're talking about, we'll get to the finance part. So,
Right.
how does that play out for a guy?
Yeah, it's a great question. Many of our members already. So as of this recording, just be fully transparent, we're about to finish class number 2. We kind of did like a private group. I had a bunch of one-on-ones too before we like really launched fully. So we've got about 50 men who are about to have completed the program total. And through that number, a huge chunk of them already, 10 to 15 already have made massive improvements where they've either gotten promoted at work, so now they're able to set policy or make changes that are helping others at work. All the guys who are married coming through have drastically improved their relationships with their wives, with their children. So it's that amplifying effect, right? We're trying to create force multipliers so that you come in, we're going to train you up, get you set right, maybe get some roadblocks out of the way for you, but then we're going to push you back out on your way with momentum, and you still have the brotherhood to sustain you. And for each guy, he's kind of got a natural gifting. This is the other thing too. It's not a one size fits all. So I lead a certain way. I have natural skills and gifts. I'm very kind of like in your face, pretty rough around the edges, authoritarian, army officer. That comes naturally to me. But that doesn't mean I'm always right. One of my instructors, Brandon, he's a polar opposite of me. He is Mr. Empathy, psychology. He reads 2 books a week. He is highly intelligent, very emotionally calm, stoic, very, very different than me, highly effective, right? And in many cases, he's more effective than I'll ever be. So we help men define who they are, what their natural giftings are, and maximize those. And so, for example, here too, I just want to everyone to realize that not everyone's going to go start companies or become the CEO of this or vice president of that. Like, that's not everyone's calling in life.
Right.
And if that's not what you're passionate about either, like, that is actually going to be a bad thing. So wherever you are, whatever station in life you're in or what you feel your calling is towards, we help you lean into that and maximize that. And so for some guys, that's just keeping their family together. And if you get that done because of the background you came from, that is generational blessing that most people are too weak to fight for, And so it's like, it's not a competition, it's maximizing you. So that, hopefully that answered your question well. But that is very, very ingrained in our program of that you're going to take this and do something with it. Like, now the burden of knowledge is on you. It's like the parable of the talents, right? You're the one who's given more. Now you're expected to actually double it and triple it and so on and so forth. And that's the vision behind what we're doing. Is it's not the George show. It's not to glorify George or I'm so awesome. No, like, this stuff has changed my life. It's going to do the same for you. And now that you know better, you are responsible for taking those skills and using them for good. And that's how you actually change a culture. That's how you actually heal a community locally to where you are.
All right. This is, as we kind of conclude this show, I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you, but I'm gonna I'm gonna throw you a little curveball right here. All right. Let's just see
Do
what
it.
you got. Ready? All right. So what prompted you to start this? What happened, or what put this on your heart? Because as guys come in and they're like, well, am I supposed to follow what? Am I supposed to go start a team? Am I supposed to be like George? Am I supposed, because I did that when I met these new coaches and things. Am I supposed to
Right.
emulate? But you've already talked about every man has their gift, right? So what prompted you to do this though?
Purely, it was a calling from God. So in 2023, in May of 2023, I was getting ready for work. I was at this big, kind of sales conference thing representing my corporate IT company. And I was straightening my tie in the mirror. And I heard the sentence from someone else's voice in my head form saying, George, this is not the path I have set for you. And I was like, ooh, the hair stood up on my back. I like froze in the mirror. And I knew that was God saying, hey, buddy, I built you for something very different than what you're doing. And you've been like not following. It's time to make a change. So I didn't just like leap without looking. I took a lot of time to surround myself with people who would tell me the hard things I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. And just at each step of that journey, really, really trying to identify for myself, using the stuff I'm teaching, applying it to myself of, what am I suited to? What are my giftings? What are the things that actually bring me fulfillment and passion? And I really leaned into the fact that I think with my background and my experiences and how I'm naturally created, I have a skill set at communicating well and helping others maximize their potential. And if that means that like it glorifies all them and they go become the famous people or whatever, great. I don't care about that. I just want to see others win. And especially when you talk about men and their marriages, first and foremost, and their families, nothing can be more important to me. I come from a broken home of divorce, and same with my wife. And so, I think we have downplayed how important it is for men to lean into building strong families. And we've pursued finance and all these other things, finance and fame over family. And I think that's just a huge mistake. And so it's very core to what I care about. God called me to it. And I just kept like one step at a time, just following that calling, not knowing what the heck I'm doing. I've never started a business. I'd only ever worked for other people. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And just along the way, God kept putting people in my life, like David Waldy, like Nick Alfano. And, now you're an extension of all of that, right? Just, I got to meet them and here and so on and so forth. And so it just became very obvious to me that, hey, I'm going all in on this because clearly, I'm not that good. I'm not that capable.
I feel you.
He has aligned these things for this for a reason. And it's not about me. It is for a higher purpose. It's for all the clients who are going to come through, transform their lives, and the ripple effects that will make. And if, that's my claim to fame one day, that I helped a lot of other people have better families and stuff, great. That feels amazing to me. So it was a calling first and foremost. And then I backed into, well, what business model would help me provide for my family and amplify this, so on and so forth. So that's really where we got to. And I also want to close with one last thing before we really wrap this up, because a lot of guys are going to hear a lot of the things I said earlier on in this episode about, well, you have to grow first and all that kind of stuff and take ownership. And they're going to kind of try and poke holes in that, saying that, well, I'm just blaming men. No, you can actually correct your wife. You are going to train your wife how to treat you, how to behave you, how to respect you. But you have to build leadership capital first. So early on, most guys are not there. When they come to the program, they think they are, and then they realize very quickly, like, oh crap, I have not been doing a lot that I needed to be doing. And once you start to click those things in, you now earn the right to kind of be a little bit firmer about certain things that really matter. And even then, it's still very stoic. It's with a lot of understanding, right? I'm not telling my wife, like, you silly woman, don't do that. It's more of a, hey, honey, you just need to ask me instead of telling me, right? And that it's a gentle correction, but you are training her and you're training your children and everyone around you how they're going to treat you. And that's what a good, strong man can do, is he recognizes, I don't have to get pissy and upset or hot and heated. I can just very calmly be like, hey, you said it like that. I don't appreciate that. Next time you need to say it like this. And then if they lose their crap, you're like, okay, well, now I know, right? But anyway, you can over time earn the right to actually start really influencing your wife's behavior too, even if she is wrong. So if she's wrong today, it doesn't earn us anything to blame her now. We just need to accelerate our own growth. And you naturally get to kind of flank around the issue and influence around it. So that's where the long game really pays those huge dividends. So I just wanted that to be clear, because a lot of guys will kind of think that they just have to be this like target dummy to get, take all the shots for everyone. It's like, I'm not saying that either, right? If there's something wrong, it should be addressed, but we want to use wisdom, because you may not be in a position yet where you're actually have the presence, have the influence to really make that hard sell, right? And over time, you can influence your family towards more positive behaviors and outcomes. But yeah, anyway.
And I'll say that, used to, I would say to my wife, well, why don't you do what I tell you to do? And now I may read Ephesians 5:25 before I ask her to do something, and make sure I love her as Christ loved the church. And if I'm doing my job, guess what? She wants to follow my lead. And the way she smiles at me today, George, when you're talking, she and I had a conversation yesterday. I said, you smile at me different these days. The smile's different. When a wife truly smiles at a husband, we can do anything. We can go out and conquer anything. And until you go through that process, and it's like when I first, and I'll say this from experience, and I know that we have like the friends, and it's like, you don't know how good it can be. And when
I had no clue.
when I say to my wife, hey, I don't think, I didn't really like that, but I understand. So what can we do to make this better? And you approach it that way. Well, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? That's all they really want. And that's all you want, because the podcast we did before, I'll say this, time's the only asset that we use that we can't check the balance on. And that's something every day when I look at my wife, I look at my kids, I'm like, okay, if today was the last day, can I look in the mirror at the end of the day and go, or yeah, you could have done better,
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm at. But George, tell us, if somebody wants to find you, social media, get in touch with you, if they want to just have a phone call to say, hey, is this for me? What's available for somebody out there looking to connect with you?
Perfect. So the best place, if you heard something here, like, dang, I want to talk more, the best place is just go to theelitesentinel.com. There's an application, like literally just click apply here. You'll fill that out. That tells me a little bit about you, your situation, so that I understand kind of the context. And then I'll tell you straight, if you're not a fit or we're not really what you're looking for, I'm going to be very direct with that. I don't want to waste your time. That's not what we're about. So we're looking for guys who are actually going to benefit from what we teach. But yeah, you can hop on a call with me through that. We'll schedule it, click the link, all that kind of stuff. And then if you're just curious to following the content, I'm most active on X at Elite Sentinel X, but I'm on all the other ones as well. I just, time is precious. And, I just like X better. So that's the one I'm on more. So
Right, right. No, I got you. I got you. And guys, George does respond to messages as we communicated there. He's always active on it. And if for some reason you don't get a response from, hit him again, because I promise you he missed it. He will not, just ignore a message there, because that's his heart. That's his assignment. That's what God's put on his life. And he's being obedient. I mean, that's all I'm hearing from you, George, is at this
yeah,
point in your
I would
life.
love to, I would love to say that I'm like so exceptional that I built this with my own two bare hands, and I'm this awesome alpha male or whatever. And it's like, no, I'm actually very average. I'm 5'9", 177 pounds. Like, no one looks at me and goes, "Oh, what a monster!" Right? And I didn't come from money. I don't have any special. I'm not some war hero or whatever. I'm as average as can be. Right? And I think that's literally, God does that over and over and over. He'll pick the broken. He'll pick the less famous or whatever, and uses them for His glory. And that I'm trying to stay faithful and obedient to that every single day, of it's not about me. It's not about this or that. It's about changing lives. This is the skill set He's given me and those who work with me in our team to do that for His glory. And so if that sounds interesting to you, and you want to, work with us, great. But it is not about me. It never will be. That's why my name isn't on the logo or anything. It's specifically as faceless as possible, because it's about you having the best life.
I appreciate that more than you know, brother. I appreciate that more than you know, because I see a lot of guys out there that need you. And I wish that sometimes I wish that was a calling on my life. And I've had the conversation with our funnel, like, I want to coach, I want to go out there and do this, and I want to
Yeah.
do that because I did this. And it's like, no, no, God's wanting you to be okay. All right. But
Right.
I'm gonna make a confession. It's cool what you guys do. It's cool. It's really cool. There's a fun aspect to at the
It
end
is. Yeah.
of those weeks. And I'm talking to a guy I met 2 years ago and have traveled and stayed at his house, and his wife knows my wife, and he's introduced me to another business that I can help. And it's like,
Mhm.
all because I took a trip and got around a group of guys and we built some rapport and doing what you're doing now, George. Kudos to you, brother.
Yeah.
Kudos.
I
Kudos.
appreciate it. But, like you said, we all have different callings. You have different skill sets and giftings, and, you're gonna maximize potential and help others, have positive outcomes with different skills. And I couldn't do what you do. And then that's part of what we train is, hey, lean into who you are, man. Don't be ashamed of that. Don't be jealous of that. And what you'll realize is the less you're in competition with others, and you just recognize, like, oh, Brian knows this really good. George knows that really good. And you start working together, everything in your life just accelerates for the positive, because you have this just team of all stars, right? And that's where it starts, right? You sign up for a thing, you put your money where your mouth is, and as a result, you tapped into this network of men that has radically improved your life. And so, yeah, maybe you're not the guy organizing it, but I'm certain that you have benefited many other men through that experience off the back of it, right? So I appreciate the kind words, but it's literally not a competition. It's not a greater than or less than. It's, we all have different purposes, and we should execute on those things.
Well, George, I think we're gonna have another show soon, because like I said, this year we tried to cut it down. But hey, bro, I think we need to talk more, because your story of being obedient in May of 23 and taking that leap, but also doing it the right way, and not just, hey, God told me to do this, I'm going to go start. No, I'm going to get around the right people. You're going to get yourself right before you start this. You're not just going to say, hey, I've got this badge and I earned this and I did this and I'm qualified for this. No, you sought
Right.
your calling and you put yourself in this position. You know,
Yep.
here's something I'll throw out at you on air, because I love putting people on the spot, as I did earlier, and you knocked that question out of the park. Somebody that's in your program that could benefit from this show, somebody that's going through it, somebody as you go through this next round, or you pick somebody, hit me up. Let's do something to where we can help them and get them on. Maybe they've never been on a podcast. Some of the guys I host, they're like, I don't know if I can talk. Okay, well, let's try. So we can do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Let me help in that capacity. Somebody that you feel could benefit from that with your program, and we would be honored to help. Okay.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. And, Brian, we don't know each other that great. We're just kind of getting to know each other, but I can already tell that you have a very giving heart and generous heart. And that's something that I have noticed as I've leveled up the men that I spend time with that I want to be like, that is a unanimous thing that they all have is generosity. It's generosity with their money, with their time, with their skills, with their mentorship. So I can already just feel that, even virtually from you. And that to me is a mark of a really great man, because you can't fake that. It has to be something that's built by transforming yourself first. That really is like one of the ultimate status symbols, is that genuine generosity to help others is something that can't be faked or bought or stolen, and it can only be built by the individual. So thank you for that, and we'll definitely take you up on that offer, because we've got some studs looking to make a lot happen in the world, and I'm always about connecting great men with other great men.
Awesome. Awesome. Brother, well, we know where to find you. We can go to the website. Say that website for us one more time, George.
It's theelitesentinel.com.
All right. And George, it's been an honor. I look forward to the future opportunities. I don't know where God's going to take this, but I know He's going to have a hand in it, and whatever we can do here for you. And guys, if you've watched the show and you're in that situation of, hey, I know there's more out there. Things aren't exactly the way they should be, or my entire world's blowing up and I'm ready to take ownership. Wherever you're at, as George said, come as you are, and then he'll tell you
Yep.
if you can work with him, because there's still an application process, because, we have to take care of it. So, George, thank you again for being here today. Guys, share this show, collab, get the message out about George. It's going to help somebody whether they sign up with him or not. Just to hear this show will prompt some guys that you don't even know you're blessing. So, George, thank you so much again for being here today.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to working with you more in the future.
That'll be an honor, brother. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching Podcast on Wheels.